Good evening. Welcome to the March 17th Grants Pass City Council meeting. St. Patrick's Day. We're all wearing our green. Good job, everybody. You know, I've been thinking about it today, and my maiden name was Murphy, and we've always taken, a certain amount of pride in our Irish heritage, but today we've had a lot of news about uprising and violence against particularly Asian Americans, and it's hard, feeling good about celebrating my personal heritage when other people are living in fear because of their own. So I would just like to take this opportunity to remind people that hate speech and violence against other people because of their race and ethnicity is not okay, and I hope that Grants Pass residents will join me in not accepting that in our community. So with that, let's begin with a moment of silence. And please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for a roll call tonight, we have Councillor King is participating online or via the phone. So we otherwise have we have a full house tonight, including our first order of business is to swear in our newest member, Councillor Kurt Collins.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kurt Collins,
Do solemnly swear.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Oregon,
and of the State of Oregon.
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
And I will faithfully perform the duty
of the office of Counselor
of the office of Counselor
of the City of Grants Pass, Oregon,
of the City of Grants Pass, Oregon,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations and welcome, Kurt. It looks like we have your seat over here this evening. We're starting off our meeting tonight with a public hearing regarding a resolution adopting the request for proposals for public service grants for the CDBG for the 2021-22 year. And we have several different presentations from local organizations tonight. I'm going to remind you all that your presentation should be approximately 5 minutes, and then we'll allow an opportunity for counselors to ask any questions. But counselors, I hope that you'll keep your questions brief as we have a number of visitors here tonight, and try to stick to things that are helpful to your understanding of this grant that they would be receiving. No, it's not on. Are you Ann?
I'm Ann.
Welcome,
Yes.
Ann.
I just need to know how to work the buttons.
We have Ann Ingalls with our CDBG coordinator, starting our presentation.
And I'm in the planning department for those of you who are new, and that's within the community development department. And I have worked the CDBG program since the inception in 2015. I wanted to bring up, first of all, there's a Federal Register notice that is circulating. It's in public comment right now regarding the Metropolitan and Micropolitan Statistical Area Standards, which is our MSA. And in 2015, we were designated as a principal city, and thereby we began our CDBG program. The notice is for the recommendation to change the definition from 50,000 population to 100,000 population. And I wanted to assure you that we will be grandfathered in, so we will not be affected by this definition. And since OMB had already listed us as a principal city, then we remain a principal city, even if our population is not at that greater than 100,000. So I just wanted to mention that before we began. The background in your packets explains the CDBG program, where we began. I believe it's on page 3 or 4. So I will not go, we'll touch a little bit on it in the presentation, the slide, but mostly the background is all right there. Tonight we're going to be doing the request for proposals for just the public services, and all the applicants are here to present their case. Again, we're here to review the submitted request for proposals. It's just for the public service grants. Council goals, it does provide cooperative, shared leadership involving council, staff, and community, encourages economic opportunities, facilitates sustainable, manageable growth, maintains, operates, and expands our infrastructure to meet community needs. The CDBG purpose is to provide flexible grants to assist cities and counties in development of viable urban communities by providing decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanding economic opportunities benefiting low and moderate income persons. The major program areas are affordable, decent housing, homelessness, non-housing community development and public facilities, economic development, and the public services, which is limited to just 15% of our annual CDBG award. Eligible public service programs are childcare, healthcare, job training, recreation programs, education programs, public safety services, youth and senior citizens, homelessness and homelessness prevention, and emergency housing assistance. Those are just a few. There are more, but these highlight most of the activities that we have been working with. As part of CFR Title 24, the eligible public services, they must be a new service or have a quantifiable increase in the existing level of a service that has been provided by the recipient in the past 12 months, preceding the submission of the recipient's consolidated plan or annual action plan to HUD. The city completed its initial 5-year consolidated plan September 30th, 2020. We began our new 5-year consolidated plan October 1, 2020. And last year, the city began this new competitive application process for CDBG funds for public services, and they decided to do so again this year. The request for proposal applications, I mailed them out January 6th, 2021, and they were also posted to the web page. The applications were all received and reviewed, and they're here tonight for your review. Each applicant will have 5 minutes to present and 5 minutes Q&A with the council. Now we have, you have scoring sheets in front of you. Last year, the council decided to score and rank from highest to lowest as to who, would receive what amount of money. Each of the scoring sheets will be in alpha order, so they all have the name of the applicant at the very top. The Each applicant can receive a minimum of 100 points. The scores will be calculated after the presentation, and then the awards will be given by ranking of highest to lowest. However, if you want to decide, instead of doing the scoring system, you could decide, there are 6 applicants, and you can decide to divide the amount equally among them without the scoring system. So that's up to you as a council to decide how you want to do that. There are 6 applications. We have Boys and Girls Club of the Rogue Valley, which works with youth training. Hearts with a Mission has a transitional housing for homeless youth, 18 to 22. Maslow Project has homeless, they help with homeless youth within the school districts. St. Vincent de Paul has a mobile kitchen, which is in different locations in the city to help with the homeless and preparing meals. United Community Action Network, UCAN, does our emergency housing and eviction prevention. U715 Ministries is a new activity for us this year, and they work with youth vocational training. After the selection of the public service activities, I incorporate them into the Year 2 draft annual action plan for 2021-2022, which will begin, that program year will begin this October 1, 2021. So we had a survey that we mailed out between February, and it will be ending here shortly on the 19th. Since we couldn't do a workshop, we had to do a survey because of the COVID. So the survey's been out for a little over 30 days to receive our needs and priorities for the community. Next month, we will have the hearing before you for the needs and priorities. And then once that's done, I have the draft of the Year 2 annual action plan, which will be a public comment period for 30 days. Then we'll come back to you on the 4th of August for the adoption of that Year 2 annual action plan. The last day for submittal to HUD is August 13, and then the program year starts October 1. This is a copy of your scoring sheet. We received approximately $391,555, which is expected to be for projects and activities in this coming year. 15% of that, which would be for public services, is approximately $58,733. The amount still requires appropriation by Congress, and we usually do not receive that until early springs or later spring. So that amount they've given us may stay the same. It may also change. So if you were to select all 6 of the public service activities tonight, each would receive an approximate amount of $9,788 for their activity. We can do the scoring system, where it would be, the highest amount would be that $9,788. If you do the scoring system, some of that, others may receive a lesser amount. And if the amount changes after Congress appropriation, then the allocations will be revised on however you adopt to revise, highest to lowest or equally. So the alternatives are adopt the 6 activities as presented with the scoring based on the highest to lowest ranking, or adopt the 6 activities as presented, but to divide the allowable 15% equally among the applicants. The recommended motion, of course, there again, the resolution will need to be changed a little bit in the language if you decide to go with dividing equally, or if you go with scoring highest to lowest. It just depends. And that would conclude what I have.
Thank you. Any questions, Rob?
So if it's an equal split, you said it was roughly 9,000 each?
It would be $9,788 each if
But
we were
if
to.
it's scored highest to lowest,
That would be a high amount. And then subsequent applicants, if they scored lower than the 100%, then they would receive a lesser amount.
so then there'd be a balance left over. What will we do with the balance?
No, we have it worked out to where there's a score sheet and we have the application that Adam will put all the numbers into it. And then there's a percentage that's attached to each of the tally amounts.
Okay, so, but if the highest is 9,000,
Yes.
and that doesn't change, if some of them get less than that, there's going to be a balance. Just going by what you
It
said.
did not work out that way last year.
I can answer that for you.
Okay.
We'll allocate the entire amount. It will just be proportionate to the scores.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned in a previous slide that this opportunity was emailed to potential applicants. And could you speak to how that group of potential applicants was identified?
Well, I have a list of most of the agencies and applicants here in Grants Pass. So it went out to a good number of people, not just the ones that we've had in the past that we work with. And then also it was posted on the web page so anyone could go in and apply for it.
Do you have any idea of an approximate number of groups that went out to?
I probably have about 30, maybe 35 on my list of CDBG contacts.
Okay, and then one other question. I know there's that 15% and then there's the 85%. And then the 15% is the maximum that can be used for public services. Is it required that we use that 15% for public services, or could theoretically council decide to not do that?
You could decide, but the 15% that we have going out to everybody right now is way less than what they usually need. And so when they come up, the ones that we have tonight are ones that we've had in the program for quite some time. And they can also attest to how that money has helped them.
Sure.
So I really, I would be against, let's say, doing that because it's such a minimal amount of money if you divide it equally 6 ways, and that money to some of them is all they would receive, you know, in a grant to help them with the programs they have.
Sure, yeah, thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. I think at this time, Boys and Girls Club is up first.
How are you all doing tonight? I'm Greg Rowe. I'm the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club. I was the cook today for, we were doing Irish meal for the kids, and so it was kind of fun, corned beef and potatoes. But sometimes you find yourself at the oven doing that. But normally we have about 6,000 kids. Because of COVID, we had to change our operations at the request of parents and the school district. What we ended up doing is we ended up doing distance learning because we have the working poor had no place to take their kids, and they're having to work. Most of them were the frontline workers. So what we did is we worked with the school district, changed the game up a little bit. And since the school year started, we've been doing distance learning. We measured the building. We're seeing about 120 kids a day. In the evenings, we're seeing teens for teen training. So they're actually doing distance learning in class in cohorts of 15, and going all day. We're basically turned into teachers because the parents had nowhere else to go. Included in that day, of course, we're serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In March, we served, when the school was shut down, we served 10,000 meals in 1 month. So I was helping with a lot of cooking on that day. The good question was about how much it's costing us. $950 per kid a month. We charge nothing for any of these services because frankly, the families we're helping right now are low-income working families. The McDonald's, the Safeways. We have a lot of families from Safeway across the street from the club, and so it's the working poor, and we just, you can't squeeze money out of people. I mean, we're normally $25 a month. I mean, that's normally all we charge, but we couldn't even do that, and we just, felt we needed to step up. So the whole year, we've been at no charge. The city's been great on the last grant to help us get a lot of the cleaning equipment. So why we're seeing less kids, our costs are actually going up because you need extra people to clean, the cleaning equipment, the staff 1 to 15 instead of 1 to 25. So COVID has driven up the cost of helping, provide basically childcare. Really, we're not a childcare agency. We're usually a program agency, but now we're a school agency to some degree. We're still seeing kids even though they've been going back because kids are still, going only 2 or 3 days a week. So we're still helping them, and we're helping ages elementary through high school. Some of these partners here, we have some wonderful people in this room that are doing amazing work, and we work with them too directly on helping do a lot of these programming. So, and none of them are making money, so I can guarantee you that. But yeah, we've just been very blessed, and we've learned a lot of things from COVID. I think some of the the interactions we've had with the kids have been really positive. Normally we see 300 kids a day after school. We're really hoping to get to that point here shortly after everybody gets their vaccine and we're back to normal. But normally we have 6,000 members, and because of the building size and the limit restrictions, we have not been able to get that. So we've been also trying to go out and do a lot of outreach for those kids who are not making it into the club. So that's about really where, that's primarily where this money is going, is helping scholarship those kids to get into the club for the distance learning. And they're there for 8 hours a day. So, which is no small task.
Thank you. Questions, Rob?
You said, but it slipped by me, how much per month do you feel that you estimate that you spend on each child?
We have it calculated out, $900 a month
Thank you, that's what I thought.
per kid. So it's normally less than that because we can see kids that are, we can see usually the ratio is 20 or 25 to 1, during regular after-school activities. But when you have to stay in cohorts of 10 all day with the same kids every day with the same staff member, and you can't switch kids around, you're stuck with, the ratios are so high. So, and that's the way with a lot of the agencies too here.
Valerie?
Yes, and thank you for what you're doing, because I do know people in childcare, and it is a nightmare right now, and it's difficult. So, did you say you've had to expand your space? Have you been able to find other buildings and things to work with?
What we're doing is really with the teams, we're doing a lot of, during the day, what we did is we've decided because of COVID, we talked to the school district of families, it was the little ones, 1st through 5th grade, that couldn't find, they can't be home alone. So what we were worried about is that parents, they have to go to work. Some of these frontline workers have to go to work. And the fear was that from us at the school district, they were going to leave them home with the older brother or sister. And so we decided to focus on our teen activities after the school hours, for the teen kind of older kids who could stay home legally. And so that's why during this temporary COVID thing, we've been, this learning, we've been focusing on the little ones. So mostly it's been K through 5th grade that we've been focusing on, the ones that they can't be home alone. But I know darn well there's a lot of kids still that have been, who we only seeing 120 because that's all we can fit into our building, because we measured literally every square inch of that building, and it's 35 square foot per kid. So we know there's still kids staying at home with the older brother or sibling. You hope. So, yeah. But 120 kids is 120 kids we're able to do. And it changes every, the kids are different every day. So, and we're the only ones doing meals next week too during spring break. So the school district's closed. So we'll probably end up doing about 2,500 meals next week too.
Thank you. Other questions for Greg?
Thank you very much. and thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
your time, we
support.
appreciate it. Next up, Hearts with a Mission.
Hello. I'll bring this up a little higher, I'm a little taller. My name is April Wagner. I'm with Hearts of the Mission. I'm a program director of the Transitional Living Program and ILP, which is an independent living program for Jackson and Josephine counties. So first, I'd like to thank the City of Grants Pass for your continued support over the many years that we've needed you guys. You've been a tremendous partner, and we respect the relationship that we've built. As you know, there's an extreme and immediate need for homeless shelters. At Hearts of the Mission, we're releasing some of the pressure felt by the community as it pertains to homeless young adults. Many of our young adults have been involuntarily homeless or just transitioning out of foster care or out of other homes. It's difficult with the lagging life skills that they have paired with the housing crisis we have experienced recently, on top of a pandemic, to become self-sufficient. So we now have a transitional living program in Grants Pass in the home previously occupied by the youth shelter. We have increased our Safe Families host homes to accommodate those 10 to 17. Actually, it's birth to 22 years old for the Safe Families, which is awesome. And our transitional program is supported independent residence that provides housing along with life skills for young adults 18 to 22 for up to 24 months. So this is a hand-up program which has expectations in order to live there. We offer assistance with everything from making medical appointments, opening a bank account, and budgeting to providing recreational opportunities for connection, especially right now with this COVID. Trying to make connections is kind of difficult for them. But our core outcomes remain the same, which are stable housing, permanent connections, social emotional well-being, and education employment. What else was I going to say? Program fees also are required, and we have scholarships that we allow them to fill out a scholarship form for, and we have grace with those program fees, but we really focus on a lot of education, employment, continued education, and then any employment to help them become self-sufficient so they don't continue to rely on other people for things. So again, I thank you for your support and look forward to continue to work closely with you. That was really quick because I'm a fast talker, but thank you.
Thank you. Was fast.
Questions?
Questions? Valerie?
Yes, I thank you for what you've done, and I have worked with your organization. I do know that you've been in transition, and so how long have, in the past, you were working with birth through the 17, and I do know that you had families, and so you've moved from the family with the younger kids, and now you're actually transitioning to help the kind of high school, late high school people move from that side. So how many can you serve at a time? So how many currently do you have in your program?
We currently, in Josephine County, we have 6 that are currently living there. We just opened the doors for them to come in February 15th. Okay. And in Jackson County, we opened a year ago for the transitional living program down there, and we have 9 there. But between the both, we also have 5 that identify as LGBTQ, which is amazing, and we get to serve a lot of them with also mental health services, therapy. I went the other day to an ATM, and the young lady that was with me, she said, "You'll have to show me how to do this because I've never done this before." Gone to an ATM. And so very surprising finding out a lot of the lagging skills that they haven't even learned and they're 18 years old. So
How do you connect with them and get them into your program?
how do I
you connect them to your program? So
right. Sorry. We have, we have an independent living program that we have 55 young adults through DHS on, and then we just get the word out marketing-wise. We've had a lot of, the majority of the young adults that we have right now are actually homeless, runaway or homeless. We don't really call them runaway because they're 18, so they're not youth anymore, but they are the ones that, we had a police officer bring a young man to us the other day that was on the Greenway area, and he was homeless and wanted to change his life, he said. Oh, is that mine? Is that mine? 5 minutes. So just a variety of different sources. And then we also work with Maslow and 715 and other, UCAN, I think, and different resources, a lot of community partners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Vanessa?
Thank you. On the application to the city, I'm seeing that, is this applicant primarily a religious organization? That box was checked no, but I'm seeing on heartswithamission.org, it states Hearts with a Mission is a faith-based nonprofit. Can you clarify that discrepancy, please?
So we are a nonprofit, and we are, I think we're both, but a religious organization. We have a faith-based approach to some things, but we don't force anybody into anything like that. They're not required to do any kind of religious activities. They're not required to participate in any of that, but we are also contracted with DHS as a licensed child care agency.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Next up is Maslow Project.
I'm really short, so good evening. My name is Corey Sommerfeld, and I am the Director of Development for Maslow Project. And I'm very happy to be here talking to you tonight and want to thank you for your support for Maslow Project with your CDBG fund since July of 2016. 100% of those have been 100% extremely low income based on HUD federal guidelines. So I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about our mission is to empower homeless youth with supports that stabilize and engage in all aspects of their life. We provide wraparound services for homeless youth and their families. So 70% of our clients, if you will, are youth ages 0 to 21. And the remainder, 30%, are adults. Their parents or guardians. So we are a no fee for service. All of our income or revenue is strictly grant fund and fundraising. Our whole 100% of our clients receive access to basic needs and services. And our goal is to remove barriers to education and employment so that they can work on individual goals of sustaining self-sufficiency related to education, employment, and housing. Our services are very stabilizing and preventative in nature. So Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? When you have to have your basic needs met before you can move on to those higher level skills of self-sufficiency. And so the whole, when you are in crisis and you're in trauma and trying to, that stabilization piece, but also the navigation of services, especially when COVID and the wildfires affected Southern Oregon, there was a huge need of helping clients and families navigate those services. It was extremely taxing and very, very hard for our clients to make sure that they were able to access all of the resources that were available to them. So as such as the effects of virtual education for homeless youth, can you imagine the trauma related to that? In addition, nationally, 500,000 students did not show up to register for classes in our nation. So there is an increase in depression, anxiety, just isolation. Through DHS, the abuse reports are up and foster placements are low. So there's a very severe increase in need in our communities across Southern Oregon. So how are we responding? Maslow is continuing to respond with hotel stays, food and hygiene, clothing, school supplies, trying to keep students engaged and connecting to them, distributing Wi-Fi hotspots, Chromebooks, and other needed services. So we did not miss one day of service as a result of COVID and the wildfires, and we have actually increased our services in grants past, adding a student success advocate that works with a case manager as a kind of a nurse doctor triage type. The case manager will see to the higher level goals, and the student success advocate works with students on accessing, different types of activities that, can develop students' interests in particular career fields or after-school activities or sports or those types of things to help progress them in their goals and what they want to do. So 500 youth have been identified through the Grants Pass School District as McKinney-Vento. That is lacking a fixed, regular, adequate nighttime residence. So you can see that there's tremendous need in our community. Last year, we worked with 348 homeless individuals. We wrote on our grant application 250. We wanted to be conservative, but we fully intend on being able to meet that goal of working with 350 individuals. 30% of those were completely unsheltered last year. 96% of our case-managed clients improved their self-sufficiency scales, so that's a whole different varying of moving forward in their career, in their goals. And 100% of our high school graduates, they are high school graduates, they graduated on time with their peers, so that's 18 out of 18. And as a result of COVID, we still are on track for having all of our seniors graduate this year when you compare that to the national average of 25%. So I know I'm running out of time here, but our requests for CBDG funds are 4% of our program cost. And so that is, quite a significant leveraging of services and grant funds that we're able to do. So not one agency can address all of the needs, and so that's my presentation. I have left you guys our 1920 annual reports to give you more information about the work that we do. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Vanessa?
Under the agency mission and service history, it's outlined here that Maslow Project's work is focused on equity. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, if you think about it, homeless youth are probably one of the most vulnerable populations. They, when disproportionately people of color and LGBTQ make up that population. So our work is focused on equity, and the homeless education McKinney-Vento law upholds that federal right of access to education. So they cannot be denied because they don't have an address. We liaison with school districts to get students enrolled immediately, and so that we're supporting, and we work and train with school districts and our school partners to make sure that those federal laws are being upheld. So it is equity and access to education and the services and supports around them. If that answers your question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Next up is the Society of St. Vincent de Paul.
Good evening, council members. My name is Don Fashing, and I'm a board member for our local council of St. Vincent de Paul here in Grants Pass. For the past 4 years, I've been managing or supervising the mobile kitchen food program. And that program is a hot food meal service outreach to homeless people on the streets, living in cars, and also seniors who have transportation but are on fixed incomes and need help or assistance with obtaining food and meals. Little background for some of the new council members. Welcome. The program started in 1997 at our fixed location, which is the St. Vincent de Paul Kitchen at 7th and M Street. Ran approximately, well, still 5 days a week. We provided a hot meal or lunch service for homeless and anyone else needing to eat. In 2015, the city and St. Vincent de Paul and other community service groups met to decide what would be a better system. We were cramped for space at that location, and so we developed the mobile kitchen service. So we've been actually operating the mobile food kitchen since 2016. Since that time, we serve hot meals a day, or hot meals 5 days a week at different locations throughout the city, as was mentioned before. We serve generally homeless walk-ins. We've seen an increase in homeless people living in vehicles and they will drive in, and also we provide hot meals for them. And then we have a lot of regular senior folks who show up in their vehicles, have transportation, and they are on fixed or limited incomes and need some help with meals. We also provide a to-go service. We started that last year. So you not only can eat on site, but as food permits, we will do to-go orders. We have a lot of folks that have people at home that are physically unable to show up at one of our service locations. We're requesting help with the grant funds to keep the program running. We are on a very fixed and limited income. We don't have any consistent revenue source. We operate on grants and donations primarily. The city's help in the past and then last year when we applied for the grant funds have helped us maintain the program. Last year, if you looked at some of the statistics I gave you, very brief, but we were ready to close down the program last May, April and May. We were just almost completely out of funds. And then we were able to connect with UCAN, and we were able to provide meal service to the warming center. And that really helped us. That's the first time in the 4 years I've been with the program that we were actually in the black. We operate in the red 90% of the time. Our biggest source or expense are we have 3 part-time employees that drive and also provide cooking service when needed. And we pay them a minimum wage, but that is generally 50 to 60% of our expenses. Also included, of course, are just operating expenses to keep the mobile kitchen running and to keep the kitchen itself running, the static location. So anytime we can get assistance to help with the program, we are greatly indebted. So if I have any questions, or do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Valerie?
Yes, have you seen, what has COVID done to the numbers, would you say, in our community?
We saw approximately a 45% decrease in the numbers.
Okay.
Before COVID, we were serving, generally we averaged 1,200 meals a month. And then when COVID hit, that dropped down to 500 and 600 meals a month. We've now seen a slight increase over the last 2 or 3 months, and we're up into the 700, 800 meals a month.
Thank you. Other questions? Vanessa?
In the application, the mission statement that's listed, I'm showing that there is a brief non-discrimination clause. Is that an inclusive list of reasons for non-discrimination?
Well, we are affiliated with the local food bank, and they are under the guidelines of USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture. So part of the non-discrimination clause comes at the direction of the federal government from USDA. And so we have training once a year. We're all updated training on discrimination and also what to do if you feel you are discriminated against, how to file a complaint if you have that. And so as far as the discrimination training, we are very careful again as to how we respond if we are asked about, sometimes we'll be asked about the race or sex or age group of our clients. And we do not permit or we do not discuss any of that with any of the clients, if that answers your question as far as discrimination. We do not discriminate anyone. All are welcome. If you drive up in a $60,000 SUV and you want lunch, you'll be fed. If you roll up on a bicycle, you will be fed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Council.
Next up, you can.
I don't ever carry a bag, so my keys are always making noise. Sorry. Hi, I'm Kelly Wessels. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for United Community Action Network. We are a community action agency that represents Josephine County and Douglas County. Our operation is really all about removing barriers in poverty for people that are experiencing it. CDBG is a critical source to my agency. I'm passing around a sheet, a data sheet, so you can see the number of households that we served based on our last contract, which was coincidentally $9,777. That funding source was leveraged in order to serve 18 households. Now, I bring that up because it's important that you understand that CDBG is the only source available in this community that provides for foreclosure assistance. It is critical to my agency. You may think $9,000, $9,700 is a small amount of money, and indeed it could be within the scheme of some things. But when you're a homeowner that has experienced a crisis or is experiencing a loss of income, like the second page, you'll see CDBG CV data, those households have nowhere else to go. And my agency is the only one that can help them. So for those households served with mortgage assistance, this is it. And we desperately appreciate the fact that it exists. Homeowners in the city of Grants Pass appreciate it. We were only supposed to serve 3 households with that fund of $9,777. We leveraged it and made it into 18 households. If you look at the second page, you'll notice that the COVID funds that are listed, thus far, we've got 30 households, 6 mortgages were saved up with that household. That's huge. There is nothing like it within the funding sources that I have. I'm humbled here. I have my colleagues here, some of them are sub-awardees that I provide state funds for. If we didn't work as a continuum to alleviate each piece that we do best, we would not have the kind of community that we need to have with well-being. COVID threw so many twists to all of us. Working virtually compromised an art that we do, which is case management. That's known as an intimate art. Getting to know a family, supporting a family, hearing all the diversity within that family of need. But we stepped up, and so did my colleagues. And we are all here representing the very best of what can be offered in a time of need. Many of the reasons that people needed this assistance this last year had to do with employer shutdowns, reduced hours, childcare, even impacts to behavioral health. Because all of a sudden, parents who had no training whatsoever and no ability and dual caregiving on both sides, elders and children, were becoming social workers, teachers, and all other things, and lost their jobs at the same time. So we provide that rental assistance or foreclosure assistance, but we also provide the linkages that allow families to thrive. And we work with our partners to do so. In addition to that, one of the activities that we've been very active in this year is that we are actually doing wraparound services for COVID-positive households that are houseless or unsheltered. That's a serious, serious work. We have not had an exponential growth in staff, but we are doing the work. We worked with our public health department, and we have worked with our other partners, including Rogue Retreat, in order to make sure that people are getting served healthfully. I can't tell you how appreciative that we are. In Josephine County last year, we served almost 1,600 households. Normally, we're in the 300s. This is very valuable to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions for Kelly?
Seriously?
No questions. I guess you covered it all so well. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Next up, we have the Youth 715.
Good evening. My name is Bud Amundsen. I'm the Executive Director of Youth 715 Ministries. And it's a newer name, but we've been in the community for quite a while, formerly Rogue Valley Youth for Christ Campus Life. And we've Been around working with kids for about 37 years here in Grants Pass. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for caring about Grants Pass and for doing largely thankless work for the folks in this community, and I'm grateful for what you do. We've asked for your support as we work to bring our vocational training program to Grants Pass. It's called 715 VOTEC. And what we do is bring vocational training to young people that are disconnected from both school and the workplace. And our focus is to give them opportunity to find independence and make living wage, or find living wage jobs. I could probably best describe our program by telling you a story about Anthony. This young man, you can see his picture. I saw this picture and I asked our vocational, there we go. I asked our vocational training coordinator, Larry, tell me the backstory of this young man. He's like, you know that story. This kid showed up to VOTEC and he had his hoodie up, he had a dog mask on, had his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He wouldn't participate in the program. He wouldn't even speak if spoken to. And I'm like, what? That cannot be the same kid. And you see, this young man, he, at 6 years old, got trapped in a house fire. He's burned over 70% of his body. He lost his mom in that fire as she was protecting him in that situation. He showed up believing that he was damaged goods and had no future. Now, this young man desperately needed vocational training. But more than that, he needed a caring adult that respectfully pushed through the challenges, the hard shell of this young man's protection set up, and to bring trust into that relationship that leads to hope. And now this young man, Larry gave me this information. Today he's a top welder. He bought an expensive helmet and is having a special welding glove made because he's missing fingers. He also bought a truck. He's performing an engine change at his house and becoming an amazingly independent adult. That's what we do. I'd like to hand it over to Sherry, and she'll give you a little more technical information.
So we have been in the community for all these years with substantial results, and we've never come to you before. That's because many of our partners are in this room right now, and we know how precious this funding is. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't a critical need. Vocational training builds self-sufficiency, but during our program we do hands-on skill training that even assist in building affordable housing. It's meeting double needs. Over 85% of the youth that get involved in this program end up in a livable wage career. That is how you break the cycle of hopelessness. That's how you're able to afford housing. It meets one of the most critical needs that we're facing. You will see in the letters of support from the Builders Association that they are lacking workers, and we have a housing shortage. And so building up this workforce is going to help with housing in the long run, but also it's equipping these individuals to have self-sufficiency through a livable wage career. And so I'll turn it over to you, I'm sure, because we haven't been in front of you before, that you have questions about this proven method.
Thank you. Questions? Vanessa?
In the application and also online, I wasn't able to find any non-discrimination policy that the program may have. Can you share if one exists?
Yes, we do have a non-discrimination policy. We did state a brief one within the application narrative. We do not discriminate on for any reason for our services, nor do we require religious participation to receive any of our services. What is bringing these matching dollars, as you can see, we have substantial funds being matched. A lot of that is coming from the Department of Education. So we adhere strictly to those, and you will see that we are a faith-based organization, but it informs why we do what we do. And so we don't discriminate. We just care very well for the youth and want to be there to address any of their needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Valerie?
Yes, welcome, and thank you for what you do for our youth. I do think that, like you said, economic, that's the ticket, is to find them a job and make them feel good about something that they can produce and do, and that makes all the difference in the world. How long I noticed that a lot of organizations are Jackson County and Josephine County, and they have programs in both areas. Do you work and at the schools? I was looking at Kirk Cold, and some of the people that are involved are in Grants Pass. About what percentage of the kids do you work with come from Josephine County?
Well, for this proposal, 100% of the youth will be, that will be served by the CDBG will be Grants Pass youth.
Okay.
Overall, Bud might be able to speak to that, but we serve over 1,500 youth in both counties.
Okay.
We've been serving this county for over 30 years. And I would say weekly, we at least have, not including the VOTEC program, this is another program that will be offered to additional services that we already provide here. But we have approximately 20 youth every week with a high success rate. 1 out of 2 youth involved with our program reduce drug activity, stop using drugs or alcohol. 1 out of 2 report stopping self-harm, and 3 out of 4 report being happier and having people that they can trust in their lives. So substantial impact for youth here locally.
Okay. And do you use like local companies and work in conjunction with those companies in recruiting them to take on kids? Or how does that work?
So the VOTEC program, we already have partners established, and we have, this was a effort from many organizations that came together.
Okay.
So one of our partners is Callie's Automotive. He ended up employing one of the, Brian, that you referenced, that's a protected name for him. So Kelly's Automotive is one of them, and then we have construction partners that are building in this area. The Association of General Contractors just gave us funding to provide the OSHA 10 card for every youth in Grants Pass that completes that. The Association of General Contractors for this area is paying for that card. And so it's heavily connected with the businesses here, and we will continue to seek out more businesses to be involved with the program because that's what helps with that employment link.
Okay.
And I'd just like to add, if you know of any businesses in the vocational trades that would like to be a part and send some professionals to do some training, we can put them to work.
Our center was donated, so it's already being put together, and these funds will be for the equipment and some tools. Like if a kid goes to, once he's trained in automotive, they need some tools, or if you're going onto a construction site, you need your own tools, so that gives them that so they can get employed. If you don't have your tools, it's more difficult to get a job.
Great. Rick?
I appreciate the fact you're giving the kids the opportunity to learn a vocation. Do you coordinate with RCC at all, which has vocational programs, or when your kids, graduate from your program, they're fully versed in that profession, or do they go on for further training?
It depends on the trade. So yes, we work with RCC, we work with Youth Pathways, we work with all the schools and the businesses. So let's take automotive. We're a pre-apprenticeship program, so the youth will come in and they'll learn the basics of what it takes to take that entry-level position at a company. but they might want to continue to pursue their education. So they will immediately, Lithia is one of our other partners, Lithia will hire them right away. Kelly's Automotive will hire them after completing our program, but they might want to go on to RCC's full automotive apprenticeship. And so and we've had that happen. Also moving on to electrical, that's another pathway that they can take. But they can start and earn some income and get a house or a place to live with that starting income.
Thank you. Other questions? All right. Thank you, Bud and Sherry.
Thank you.
And that was our last presenter. This is a public hearing, so are there any members of the public who are here to speak on any of this? All right, not seeing any. Do we have any more questions for staff? Kurt?
I'm wondering, were they provided the score sheet with which to prepare their presentations?
They had a copy of the score sheet in their request for proposal application, so they at least know what the points are attributed to.
Thank you.
I have a question again about the finances, because most of the applications here have requested $8,200. One has requested $10,000. All told, that doesn't add up to $58,000, which I think is what Rob was getting at a little while ago.
That's correct. I think it was $52,800 versus the $58,733 that is available. The scenario that we're in this time is such that we have more funds than are being requested, which brings up the possibility of granting everyone what they asked for, and then everybody could get another $989 each, or that could be ranked out somehow. It could be handled any way council likes. There's just some options. Once I get all the scores, I've got a little bit of that laid out visually to be able to compare the different options for you as well.
Okay, in that case, I think I'll open it up to council to discuss how you want to handle making this decision. Do you want to do the scorecard? Do you want to divide evenly? Do you want to offer another suggestion? DJ?
I think proceeding with the scorecards would be appropriate. We were all prepared for that and believe we've all filled it out, so I'd leverage the scorecards in this instance.
And then that being said, given that we can give everybody what they asked for, I guess that still leaves how to divide up the funds. Brian?
From what I heard, all of those organizations are providing pretty essential services, and we have the funds to fund all of them, so we can go through the scoring. I don't necessarily feel that we need to.
Rick and then Vanessa.
I would agree. I think they all have very valid efforts in what they're doing and providing the community. I don't know the scoring is really necessary. Thank you.
Vanessa?
I'd be in favor of providing each applicant with the amount requested and splitting up the remainder to each, the $989 that Adam had outlined.
Valerie?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wish we could give them more because of the value of what they do bring to our community. So knowing that we have the money to give each of them, I would like to have, the only thing I would use the scoring for is that I think that there's a few of them that I would like to have split because a couple of them asked for 10,000, a couple of them asked for 8,200 or whatever, and some of the ones that I felt asked for the 8,200, I would like to see them get more. Just because I felt they reach a broader scope of the community than some of the ones that asked for 10,000. So I don't know if we just give them, you know, the maximum amount is 10,000 and then we divvy up the rest evenly among the people that went for the 80 who asked for less. I don't know if that's a possibility, but hey, there's another thing we'll throw in there.
So I found one that had 10,000. Is that two? There were
There's two.
Two that asked for 2,000? Okay. So if we have 82,000 times 4 plus 20,000, we get 52,800. If you were to give each group what they asked for, and then we have about 6,000 left to divide among the other 4 groups. Is that your suggestion, or are you wanting to pick particulars? Valerie?
I don't know, you'd have to run that by through mathematics. So you're saying that, I'm just thinking, we had 6, 2 of them asked for 10,000. So I say that that's a go, and that, you took that away from the 58,733, and that came up with a remainder of, I mean, what was left?
It's approximately 1,500, but maybe Adam has the specific number?
Yeah.
For those that requested 8,200, that'd be an additional $1,483.25, giving those a total of $9,683, and then the 2 that requested 10 would receive 10,000. So they'd all be very close to the $10,000 mark.
Okay. I'm fine with that. That sounds good to me.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I will make that a motion, that, whatever it was, the magic that Adam did.
Your motion is to give 2 applicants who, so I have, let's just.
2 applicants, the 10,000, the full amount, and take the remaining amount and divide it equally among the 4, that would give them an amount of 9,600.
Okay, and I
Can I
have
do it?
St. Vincent de Paul as one of the 10,000s, and what's the other?
I thought I had them.
Hearts with a Mission.
Hearts with a Mission.
Hearts with a Mission is the
Yeah,
other with
and
10,000.
Motivation.
So then the 4 other organizations would get, what is it, 9,600?
9,600. Mhm.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? DJ with the second. Any discussion? I'm sorry, Joel, you're out there. Did you have any comments on this?
You know, I'm agreeing with what everybody's saying, and I can vote.
Okay, terrific. I will remember to call on you. We're going to vote in just a minute here. Any further discussion? No? Okay, Valerie, we are starting with you.
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
And Joel?
Yes.
It's unanimous. Motion passes. Congratulations and thanks to all the groups who came tonight and presented, and thanks for wearing your masks and honoring the time limits as well. That was great. Next up, we have a continuation of a legislative land use hearing, so I have something to read. We will begin the hearing with a staff report, followed by public comment, and then the matter will be discussed and acted upon by the council. And I will open the public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the scenic resources sections in Chapter 3 of the Comprehensive Community Development Plan. And it looks like we have Bradley Clark here to present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Good news is there's no math involved in this particular application. So this is a continuation, as you said, and the topic is related to the comprehensive plan. This is our main policy document in the city, which relates to land use.
You know what? I did the same thing last time. I forgot to read all the
Oh, I'm
admonishments.
sorry, yes.
I'm sorry. It's the way this thing is written. Is there anyone present who wishes to challenge the authority of the council to consider this matter? Do any councilors wish to abstain from participating in this hearing or declare a potential conflict of interest? In this hearing, the decision of the council will be based upon specific criteria. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards those criteria. The criteria which apply in this case are noted in the staff report. It's important to remember if you fail to raise an issue with enough detail to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue, you will not be able to appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. We will now begin the hearing with the staff report. Sorry about that, Brad.
Not a problem. I did want to point out that the consultant on this study, Jones & Jones, the primary project manager being Charlie Scott, is on the line. And so if you have any questions, we didn't have him prepare anything for you tonight because it was a continued hearing, but I believe at the January hearing there was a mention of who prepared the study. And so Charlie is hopefully on the phone. I haven't spoke to him directly, but I just wanted to point that out. If you have questions particularly related to the way that the study was prepared, the methodology, the survey, the community outreach that was done, that was all done through Jones & Jones. And so he's on the line. The first couple slides here are just a summary of what we had in January. This is related to planning goal number 5 and the statewide planning goals about scenic resources. Our current comprehensive plan does have a section on scenic resources. It is fairly limited, and it does not have any associated study that is adopted in the plan. It's just a few paragraphs. So this would expand that section, chapter 3 in the comprehensive plan. This is related to as I mentioned, Jones & Jones's 2017 study, and that was in the packets for you. The organization was brought in to do a multi-month process. They worked with the community, they did a survey, and tried to identify what the residents in Grants Pass felt were those valued scenic resources that were deserving of protection or additional land use protection in particular. That study was completed in November 2020. I won't read these were in the study, but basically we are talking about definitions that are in the Oregon administrative rules related particularly to open space and scenic views. There's also many federal agencies that talk about scenic resources, Department of Transportation, Army Corps of Engineers, HUD, many have also definitions of scenic resources which are very similar to these. The ones that are identified for the city of Grants Pass in the plan are listed here. There's 9 of them. The Rogue River being probably the most predominant and what is is dealt with quite a bit in the study. So here's some of the key dates that have happened so far. In October, the Planning Commission held their public hearing. November 17th, I'm sorry, the notice for the Planning Commission was in October. November of 2020, the Planning Commission held their public hearing. There was no public comment at that meeting. The Planning Commission chose to recommend approval to the City Council at that meeting. They adopted their findings in December. January 6th was this City Council's first public hearing on this, and at that meeting you continued it to March to today, March 17th. And the primary reason was really that was your first meeting as a council. I think it was a lot to take in, and I think my sense in listening back to the tape was that you wanted more time to kind of look at the material. Just a couple of changes since that January 6th hearing. There was a couple of text amendments in the study that refer to River Road Reserve. And since the city no longer owns that property, those were removed. So those are on pages 27, 29, and 30. And then there was also some discussion, this isn't a change, but we did look into this, and the original names in the appendix that also referred to some other parks and things that are now either changed names or are no longer in the city's reserve system. Because the appendix is reflecting a study that was done, and those actually were the accurate names at the time that the study was done, staff's recommendation is just to leave that appendix the way it is, because it's just really reflecting a point in time. And at that point in time, that is what was presented to the public, and it was accurate at that time. So to go back and change those names now really is kind of trying to change history. So we're recommending that those just kind of stay as they are. The proposed actions are really the same. These are in your packets again, and I won't repeat those unless the council has questions or wants to go over those. The crux of the application before you tonight, although the study is significant and has a lot of really great material in it, in terms of the city policies, we're really only talking about 6. And 2 of them are really kind of just tweaks on what's already in the adopted comprehensive plan. Then there's 4 others that are fairly new. So we're talking about adding 6 new policies, or 4 new policies to kind of amended to the comprehensive plan. And those are listed here. The first one really has to do with creating a scenic route and major gateway overlay designation in the urban growth boundary. The second one is working with the county to appropriately control large-scale development or disruptive uses on lands that are visible from the city. The third one is working to preserve and enhance scenic views of Caveman Bridge. And again, all of these are really built on the outcomes of that survey that was done in 2017 of what the citizens felt were some of the most valued scenic resources in the community. So Caveman Bridge was identified as one of those. This one sort of has 2 subcomponents to it. The first one is working cooperatively with ODOT and trees in the 6th Street right-of-way within 100 feet of the bridge to be preserved and replanted as necessary. That is changed a little bit from the Planning Commission to clarify ODOT's concern. That was the one comment we did get from another agency when we distributed this application for comment. ODOT felt that the way it was originally worded may kind of put them on the line for coming and replacing trees that are along 6th Street near the Caveman Bridge. That wasn't the intent of the Planning Commission or this policy, so this tries to kind of make it clear that it's not ODOT's responsibility, but because of the scenic resource that it offers and the trees being kind of a part of that scenic resource, they would seek to be preserved and replanted as necessary. And then the second part of that 3.3, it does refer to trees in Riverside Park near the bridge being preserved and replanted. And of course, on both sides of Caveman Bridge, the city owns property on both sides, so we have the ability to control that, at least right now. 3.4, the city will develop new and enhance existing viewpoints of Caveman Bridge. 3.5, the city will continue to maintain and enhance existing parks and open spaces. And 3.6, the city will continue to add new parks and open spaces following guidance in the Parks Master Plan. So the criteria for approval are listed here, also in the staff report. They are pretty typical for comp plan amendment applications. You basically, as a city council, need to find the consistency with the comp plan, and if there's a change in circumstances that validates why this change is needed, that would necessitate findings. The third one is applicable planning goals and guidelines of the state of Oregon. Fourth, citizen review and comment. What does that say? And how is this plan consistent or not with that? And then the fifth, review and comment from affected government units and other agencies. So the action before you is to take any additional public testimony, to discuss the amendments and deliberate. This is, as you read, Mayor, legislative. So there is no deadline on this. These actions are entirely policy-driven and entirely up to the City Council. There is no timeline on them. As referred to in the staff report, the scenic resources element is not mandatory by the state of Oregon. So that in and of itself is voluntary. We are not under any requirement or mandate, as we are in many other parts of the comp plan, but this is not one of them that's mandated. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Questions? Rick?
Thank you, Brad. As you know, I'm a land use consultant. I've seen having to address the goals, especially when you do have a developer who wants to do something. Addressing some of the goals can be extremely difficult. So I do have a couple of items I'd like to address. On item 3.2, it says concerning large-scale development disrupt uses on lands visible from the city and under county jurisdiction. Again, I get concerned there. Of course, to me, the first thing I read there is you can't cut the trees or do any logging, even if you have a piece of private land that could come and stop somebody from being able to log their own property. So would that be true, or how does that actually work?
So you're raising really kind of probably the most practical point of how these policies work, and that is each application under Oregon law does have to comply with the comprehensive plan, but that's where it's very clear in the statute how this is subjective. These scenic resources are subjective, and so I do not, at least as a community development director, believe that what it is saying is that you cannot log the property. I think it's sort of saying this is a value of the citizens to have this view. If we don't have any jurisdiction over something that's outside, so that's why it's pointing to the county. I think it just gives you the opportunity to engage in conversation and dialogue with the county if a significant change was proposed.
I guess if that was explained further and that it's showing it would not stop a development, like housing is really essential right now, and yet a lot of the flat land is used up, so housing is put on the hills. But if according to these regulations, then we can't put housing on the hills, I would be very hesitant on this. I have a couple other ones. On 3.3, about preserving the trees down there and so forth, it says the trees will be preserved. One thing that is common that happens, you have a sign, and it can even be an ODOT sign or a speed limit sign. Trees grow up and you can no longer see the sign because they're not being pruned. Would this prohibit pruning for visibility for sign purposes? And does that need to be included in the language so it's clear and not vague?
Well, no, I don't think that that's the intent here, and certainly that's not what the Planning Commission's recommendation to you was. I think it's not an ordinance that we're talking about, so it doesn't have the weight of an ordinance. It's a value that's being expressed through the statement. So I mean, Mark may have a different opinion, but I don't think that it has that kind of effect.
So that's correct. The case law is very clear that comprehensive plan provisions generally are not mandatory criteria. They're generally stated in terms of aspirational goals. So they're not criteria unless they are very obviously criteria. So 3.3B, that's a little bit closer to rising to the level of criteria.
Thank you. And the last item I have is 3.5. To maintain and enhance existing parks and open spaces. And one of the exhibits here is Allen Creek Reserve. And I was on the PAVE committee for properties, and we're looking at more properties, provide for housing, low income, moderate, and so forth. Is this photograph here, is that a piece of property on the west side of Allen Creek or on the east side?
What page is that?
113. It looks to me like the property that was on the east side.
Do you have a page number in the plan, or I don't, oh, here we go, the packet, I've got the packet here.
I think it's page 6.
Well, in the full packet, Joel, it's study 6, 113, page 113. Joel, do you see that photo?
I do. Thank you, Rick.
Does that look like the one that was on the west side or the east side of Allen Creek?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I would not know the answer to that. I don't know
So
if,
I guess I would be real hesitant on losing a piece of property, having it go to open space and not be available for housing, which we sorely need. So again, I'm real hesitant. The way some of the exhibits are in here, are they committing?
are they
So-
committing us to preserve, in this case?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, neither the study nor the policy is specific to a piece of property. The city will continue to maintain and enhance existing parks and open spaces. I think you make a good point. It doesn't speak to the reserves. And that may be something that we want to talk more about.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So to touch on that, this document doesn't supersede council's direction, action, authority to take park reserve and make it residential, or sell park land, or do whatever you want. This is more aspirational in nature from a standpoint of a document. It doesn't have the actual legs associated with creating, like Brad said, an ordinance. Where it's in the code, or it's in a development code, or it's in a municipal code. This is more of a plan that states what your values are for the natural resources in the area, but it doesn't, I don't see anywhere in the document that it would supersede any authority of council with regards to your codes and ordinances.
So do we have the ability to put the language in here? This is I want to say, nice document, but it has no authority.
Is that a motion? Not quite there yet. Brian has a question?
I was actually going to make a motion.
Oh, okay, we're not quite there yet because it is a public hearing. But questions for Brad? Joel, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. I just had one thing, and it pertains to Rick's topic on page 3, under studies, purpose, and approach. In the first paragraph there's four statements, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The fourth one says, enable the city of Grants Pass to decide whether further steps should be taken to acknowledge and protect its scenic resources. So the study's purpose and approach is not to limit the council's authority or to dedicate any land to any particular use. It's just to information and talking about what items could protect scenic resources from adverse effects of conflicting uses, and the council then can use that as a resource in the future. At least that's the way I read it, Rick.
All right, further questions for Brad?
Thank you.
All right. Seeing none, we'll turn it to the public. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public here to speak on this issue? Well, nobody's lining up, so now we will close the public hearing and turn it back to council deliberation. And Brian, Rick has a question.
I guess I would like to see some of examples in all the categories, how this would work or not work. Because again, I'm concerned that we as a city and we as government are getting into additional regulations upon people and make development more difficult. So unless I can be assured we're not going down that direction, I'm not comfortable with what's here tonight.
Thank you. Brian?
So as I understand it, this is, there is no enforcement as part of this document. This is a value statement. This is something that's aspirational, as Aaron said. So I don't think it's restricting in any way. I think it's something to show how we would like to see things move forward, but there's absolutely no teeth to this document as I understand it. So with that, I would move that we adopt the ordinance amending the scenic resources sections in Chapter 3 of the Grants Pass Comprehensive Community Development Plan and have it read by title only, first reading.
Is there a second? Valerie? Discussion? DJ?
Sure. I share the same sentiments as Rick does. I guess to put it more simply, I think this document is bureaucratic busy work that I can find more faults to than I can benefit. We currently have protection mechanisms that are restrictive, that will preclude development, and I think this is just a overworded document that it makes an attempt to supplement, and therefore I'm not in favor of this.
Further discussion? Rick?
And if a statement could be added in here that would clarify any ambiguity, how this would be applied, I guess I could be supportive of it. But right now, the wording that is in here, I feel the latitude is too wide and could be used against a developer proceeding. Thank you.
Further discussion? Valerie? Oh, wait, Mark? We'll go to Mark first. Okay.
I'll defer to Councilor Lovelace.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that actually.
Hey, I'm in charge of this. I said Mark goes first.
My bad. So, I think that you summarized it correctly. There is plenty of case law that items in a comprehensive plan are not applicable criteria. They're guiding documents, so they're not used on a permit by permit basis as decision criteria. They're meant to guide implementing ordinances. So in the future, when you're doing legislative actions with ordinances that do establish criteria for permit approval, you're supposed to look to your comp plan and see that the ordinances in the Land Development Code further the aspirations of the comp plan. I do understand the hesitation that both of you have expressed. And so, Councilor Riker has touched on perhaps including some language indicating that these are aspirations and should guide future land development code legislation, or simply state these are not individual approval criteria. That would be one way of perhaps at least alleviating some of your concerns. I don't know if they alleviate yours, Councilor Fazer.
Well, I was just going to add, as I read through it, I don't know whether last time I felt more your way, Rick, because I was kind of frightened by what I read, but when I read through it this time, it didn't seem that way. It seemed more aspirational. It does go on specifically to talk about how there are things that could, like zoning districts, you could do this to keep it, you could, it has things that you could do that are already in place that would back up the aspirations, but it doesn't give specific criteria. So I felt comfortable with it. I felt that it basically was just saying, hey, we live in this beautiful area. We need to work to, keep this our resources. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it is an aspirational thing. So I feel that it is fine. I don't have a problem with it.
Rob?
Yeah, I appreciate Mark's comments. And as far as aspirational goes, I think one of the other, well, specifically with regards to scenic aspects of it, it's aspirational, but I also think that it also is aspirational in the aspect of the city and the county should be working together on this. And I think that that's also a really valid point. So, well, last time I brought up some of the same questions that Rick had. I think that it's pretty clear to me that this paints an overriding picture of what we appreciate about this area. Hopefully that our governments would work together, city and the county. And I don't think that specifically it really should limit any specific action in the future. It just gives an overall feeling to the fact that we appreciate the natural beauty of where we are. We could approve this tonight. I'd be okay with it. I'm not even sure why the plan was ever done to begin with. I'm not sure why we hired a consultant to do this without any teeth and without any specific language. But I could approve it based on Mark's interpretation of how it may just guide future ordinances, but does in and of itself, does not actually set anything in stone.
Joel, did you have any comments?
No, I don't. Not that it's already been said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Ready to vote? We have a motion on the table on the floor rather, to adopt the ordinance, amending the scenic resources sections and have it read by title, first reading only. Ready? Brian? Lead the voting. How do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
No?
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
No.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
And Joel?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. And Julie, can you read it for us?
An ordinance of the Council of the City of Grants Pass amending the scenic resources sections in Chapter 3 of the Grants Pass Comprehensive Community Development Plan.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have our next two items are very similar but involve two different franchisees. So we will start off with a resolution to consider authorizing the city manager to amend the franchise agreement with Republic Services, seeking a rate increase.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a brief presentation that I would like to make ahead of hearing the rate requests from the two franchisees. And it's to kind of lay out a summary of how the two rate requests made it before you tonight. The relationship to your council goals is providing cooperative shared leadership involving council staff and the community. So the City of Grants Pass's solid waste services are provided through franchise agreements with two firms. The original agreements have been in place for a number of years, with the last major revisions coming in the year 2000. In 2001, Josephine County and the City of Grants Pass entered into an intergovernmental agreement creating the Josephine County City of Grants Pass Solid Waste Agency. Since that time, the City of Cave Junction has also joined in on that intergovernmental agreement, but the agency's purpose was to manage funds for the remediation, big words, the remediation of solid waste issues in the county and the City of Grants Pass. The agency, though, is also tasked with administering the 5 franchise agreements that make up solid waste in the services in the area. The City of Grants Pass has 2 agreements, one with Republic Services and one with Southern Oregon Sanitation. Josephine County has 2 similar with Republic Services in Josephine County, and the City of Cave Junction has 1 agreement with Southern Oregon Sanitation. The agency itself is funded through the collection of an environmental program fee. That fee is $5 per ton, and those funds are used for solid waste programs. They also are for environmental monitoring and landfill post-closure maintenance, and that's for the 3 landfills locally, which is Marlson, Kirby, and Merlin, also for Foothill. It is also for the remediation of contaminated sites and other actions ordered by the DEQ. This fund has been used to support many environmental programs in the area, including Grants Pass's and Josephine County's solid waste programs, which are remediating private sites that have very large environmental contamination issues on them. The board itself is comprised of 3 members from the city of Grants Pass, 3 members from Josephine County, and 1 member from the city of Cave Junction. No more than 1 board member from each group shall be an elected official, and then no employee or owner of any solid waste company or recycling company can be a board member on that solid waste agency to make sure that they are independent. So the other primary function of the board is that they are tasked with making recommendations they deem reasonable and necessary, those are the words that are in the IGA, for the adjustment of rates charged for solid waste service. Any recommendation that they do make shall include a proposed rate schedule, and then the agency board forwards that to the governing bodies, which is you. The governing body shall review that recommendation and determine whether to allow, disallow, or modify that recommendation. If no action is taken by this board within 60 days of the recommendation from the agency, that rate shall become effective. So the current rate request that is before you, the agency held 2 meetings to review the proposed rate from Republic Services and Southern Oregon Sanitation before making the decision to recommend them for your approval. The board members had requested additional information from the haulers before making that recommendation. And the reason that it is before you is that both franchisees are below the permitted level of profit, which is between 9 and 13%. So I do have a call to action date for you today, and that will be for both resolutions. We will take them independently. And the reason that I wanted to give you a little bit of history is I know that many of you have not been through the solid waste rate review process yet. The alternatives that I have, this will apply to all of the presentations. We can approve the request. You can approve the request as presented, request additional information, or deny the request. And with that, I'm going to have the haulers, the franchisees, actually make those presentations and provide you with the evidence of the rate request and make their requests for themselves. And at the end, we would like to take an action on each resolution independently. And we'll start with Republic Services and Julie Jackson and Chris Wilson. You'll be up here. Julie?
Good evening. I am Julie Jackson. I'm the Municipal Manager for Republic Services. We appreciate your time here tonight. We are here primarily to ask for a rate adjustment, as Jason said. And let me make sure I'm running this right. There we go. So I guess the question you probably have is, why do we need a rate adjustment? And we would like you to know that we haven't had a true rate increase since 2017. There was an increase in cost in 2018, but that was primarily just a pass-through due to the China Sword Initiative for recycling, and that kept recycling programs in place. Our primary reason for being here tonight is that our contract with Dry Creek Landfill has expired. We had a 20-year contract. We enjoyed a good 20 years at very low rates. We knew that when that contract expired, we would need to renegotiate for a higher contract. And so the numbers are these. We have a 21% increase in the cost of disposal and transportation to Dry Creek that is effective April 1st, 2021. That 21% increase reflects 40% of our operating cost. And so that really, in a nutshell, is our primary reason for being here. I will tell you that many communities in Oregon are seeing large increases at landfills. We understand this because we operate a landfill in Benton County, and we know that it is highly regulated, and costs to landfills are great to run an environmentally sound landfill. So we understand that, and that's what we're looking at. If you look at our rates in Southern Oregon, you have this in front of you, I think, and it's easier to read, but the rates are still very low compared to the rest of the state. The charts are a little bit different. So the 35-gallon cart rates are even lower as compared to the 65-gallon cart rates, and that's because of the way the rate structure is. Those 35-gallon carts are incentivized a little bit. So I think you would say there's incentive for people to make a smaller amount of waste, and we like that. We think that's a good thing. This slide shows you our revenue and operating costs and resulting margin for 2019, which we ended the year before taxes at 7.6% margin. 2020, we ended the year before tax at 6.7% margin. And then we show 2021 as a pro forma. That is with the 15.3% increase. That would bring us just to 10%, which is right within that 9 to 13% range that we're allowed by the franchise. So here I've just spelled it out a little bit. What we're requesting is a 15.3% increase across all lines of business effective April 1. So that would be our commercial, our industrial, residential lines of business, and at the transfer station. The franchise agreement, as Jason said, allows a reasonable margin between 9 and 13% before taxes. Taxes for corporations are 28.6%. If we looked at those after-tax margins, they would be between 6 and 9%. We put a couple other numbers up there because while taxes are not an allowable expense, we want you to know we do pay those taxes. They are an expense that we have. And if you look at our margin after tax, they're even lower than they would be otherwise. So 5.4%, 4.8% last year. And then we'd actually be at a negative margin for 2021 without the increase. I don't want to belabor this because I know that there's a lot to get through tonight, but we want to propose a different way of adjusting rates. We know this is a really large increase, and we know that it's hard for folks. We don't like coming in for a big increase like this. So we would like to propose that we move to a different methodology for adjusting rates, and that would be an index-based methodology. The current methodology takes a 2-year look back. So we can, in a sense, get pretty far down that road, get behind for 2 years, and not even be able to ask for an increase until that 3rd year. And that's kind of where we are now. So it lags behind, it's slow to react, and it can be really challenging then for our customers when we come in and ask for a big increase. We think using an index, and the one that we like is called, coincidentally, garbage and trash collection. We think that makes some sense. It keeps pace with the industry. It allows adjustments that react to the industry. For example, there's a chart in your packet that shows we can see where the China Sword Initiative was on that index, and we can see where it reacted to COVID. It's more predictable for our customers, and we think it creates an equitable rate structure. Now, there are a couple more slides and some information you have if you want to look at it, but I'm not going to go into that tonight because what our plan is to work with Southern Oregon Sanitation and the Solid Waste Agency to put together something that we can all agree on and then come back to you with that. So what we're really asking you to do tonight is to approve the rate increase. And I'd be happy to answer questions. I also have Chris Wilson here with me tonight. Chris is our operations manager here in Grants Pass. And if you have questions that have anything to do with trucks, he's your guy.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
Brian?
Thank you for the presentation.
Sure.
I just had a question on the graph earlier on that had the prices per cart in different communities.
There you go.
So like, for example, the 35-gallon cart for Grants Pass, it's showing about $20. If I remember right, on my bill, it's not $20. There's other fees that are on that bill that make it more, or I'm just wondering how that rounds out the
That's very
service?
confusing. We bill every other month, bi-monthly, so your bill is probably somewhere around $38, $39. It's 19 something for that 35-gallon cart. So we do bill every other month.
Very
And that's
good.
probably
Thank
what
you.
you're seeing. Sure.
Other questions? Valerie?
And I'm just assuming too, because there's actually three. You do the recycling, you do that, and the yard waste too. So there,
Correct.
you know, how has the yard waste cost? Has that gone up, down, whatever? How is that?
One of the things that I can tell you that has been a very interesting awakening for us during this past year, during COVID, is that we have seen yard debris amounts increase substantially across the board for the entire year. We've also seen recycling amounts and the amount of trash that's made at homes increase up to 30 or 40% for the year because we know people are at home. My colleague and I were just talking about that today. We were talking about the fact that people have sort of gotten into this idea that they're at home and they're enjoying their yard, they're cleaning out their garage, they're creating a lot of waste, and they're working in their yards much more. So we think that the new norm is going to settle out somewhere. Maybe people won't work quite as much if they go back to the office or back to the job place. But we think that there's going to be an increase, that some of that increase at residential service will continue for both yard debris recycling and trash. Now, the other thing I can tell you about recycling is that we're seeing copious amounts more cardboard. And that's because everybody is ordering online. So we see cardboard in huge amounts right now.
Is it recyclable? Because I know a lot of things can't, there's not a
Yes.
market for them. So is the market there for the cardboard?
There is a good market for cardboard, especially. The material that I think we all sort of heard about during the China Sword Initiative and that we still work with is plastic. And I can tell you that both of our companies work very hard at a state level with some changes that are happening in the recycling program for Oregon. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to see a lot of big changes in a positive way.
Yeah. I actually, I have a brother who has, a friend of his just went into doing something with plastic because that's the biggest thing we've got to do is find that market for plastic. And I'll also tell you, my daughter sells lab equipment and they can't get enough plastic in this country right now to make the equipment that's necessary for just the medical field. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of change and for the good.
Brian?
Yeah, I just have one more question.
Sure.
I was looking through the minutes from the Solid Waste Agency, and there was some discussion about adding a second landfill at the Coffin Butte location. And I was just wondering if that's a part of what we're discussing tonight, or if that's something that might be coming later.
No, we really aren't discussing that. We've talked about, as a part of the cleaning up the contract language, our contract says that waste has to go to Dry Creek landfill. We think just based on wildfires and pandemics and all the kinds of things that are happening in the world, it makes sense to include language that waste can go to an approved, regulated by DEQ landfill, just so that we're not locked into that one landfill. But no, we aren't talking about sending it north or working on that at all.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Valerie?
Are there other landfills being developed? I mean, in this day and age, nobody wants a landfill anywhere, and it seems like, you know, they do get full, and we just keep having more people. So what is the, you know, where do we go in the future for developing new landfills? Because you said, the one in Dry Creek is in White City, am I correct? And the one that you were talking about, the Cocoa Butte, that's up in Lynn County or?
Benton County, yeah.
Yeah, Benton County and Corvallis, so that is a long way to haul your garbage.
It would be a long way, and I think that my personal feeling is that we probably will never build another landfill, at least on this side of the mountains in Oregon. I think it would be an almost impossible proposition. There are really large landfills, much larger than what we see on the west side of the mountains, and down the gorge and on the Washington side as well. And I think eventually, when landfills become full here, if we haven't gone to other alternatives by that point, waste will likely be railed or trucked long distances, and then of course the cost really goes up. But as I said, we're working with the state and with DEQ on some pretty huge landmark legislation that will change the face of that, and that will hopefully significantly slow the rate that we're putting material in landfills. And I think that's one of the big goals.
Thank you.
Joel, do you have any questions?
The one question I had is, what would our community look like if you folks didn't exist?
Well, that's a great question. I think that you would see a lot of waste piling up. I'm very, very proud of the work that our frontline employees have done during this pandemic. We didn't miss a beat. We didn't miss a route. Our folks were out there picking up waste when we weren't sure if it was safe for them to get out of the truck or not in the beginning. But we did see a lot of waste. In the beginning, people were kind of panicky. And so I would hate to see a community without us. So thanks for asking that question.
And well, thank you for being here.
Sure. Yeah.
DJ?
Yeah, I have a question about the increase and then using the annual increase based on the index. And then, so is that proposal basically an increase based on that index to kind of circumvent having to come to council and ask for, stepwise increase to meet your margin? Is this a proposal to replace that?
So what we're asking for is a 15.3% increase now, just to get us up to kind of that level set. What we'd like to do going forward, and of course, like I said, we will be working with SOS and with the Solid Waste Agency, is create a method where we use that index to keep us kind of on a more level pace. I can tell you that I work with quite a few other communities where we do that, and the increases tend to be, sometimes there's no increase. For example, the increases tend to be 2%, 2.1%. Sometimes they're 0.5%. So they tend to be much smaller, but they're more frequent. Now, we do go to council every single year and present that to council, and council basically looks at it and says, yes, this meets the criteria, this is what we asked you to do, and they approve it. So I think we get that question a lot, and we aren't trying to go around council or take control or approval away.
I have a question. I think my monthly bill is something like $38.50 a month. So a 15.3% increase would be about, well, I guess I should say $38.50 every 2 months, right? Would be approximately $6.
I have $2.95 a month, and times 2 months, it's approximately $6.
Okay, so people would see an increase of about almost $6 on their bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Further questions?
Valerie, I just have a question as to whether you've seen or whether you predict, because there'll be some people that refuse to pay it. And what are the consequences? Because I actually have a neighbor who tried to do that, just started throwing their garbage in the backyard. And I'm just kind of assuming that, there are ordinances or things that we can do from public health standpoint if it happens. Because I did notice also that when you had, in reading this, that if, and I think this happens more in the county, I'm not sure, where people hire other people to pick up their garbage and then they're not allowed at the transfer station, and that has become a problem. So I'm going to assume that's more a county problem than it is a city problem.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. We don't see very many people who just refuse to pay their bill and pile trash up. I mean, that becomes a pretty bad way to live. And so we really don't see that as often. We know that an increase this size is tough on people, and we understand that. But we really don't see people just refusing to participate in services. One of the other things that we propose doing is to create a dump stoppers program, and Republic Services will contribute to help fund that program. We need to work with the Sheriff's Department. We're working on one of those in Benton County right now. And we know we need a little bit of authority behind it, so the Sheriff's Department is the logical choice. And the good news is, I think in Benton County, we're working out some of the kinks, so we can bring that down here and hopefully institute that program as well.
So that's kind of what
Yeah,
made me think
it's a
about
good
it.
program.
Okay.
Further questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will go to the SOS presentation.
We'd actually like to take action on that resolution independently if we could, and then we'll do the SOS presentation.
Okay.
They are separate, but we can
Yeah,
go
I
the other
understand
way.
that they're separate, but we're going to do it before we hear both presentations? Is that?
So they're two separate resolutions.
I understand.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll
But,
do that.
okay. Council, do you want to hear the SOS presentation first, or you want to act on Republic?
We can act on this.
Okay. In that case, do you have discussion? Oh, public comment. Is there public comment here on the Republic presentation? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Is anyone here to comment on the Republic franchise fee rate increase? Not seeing anyone. Okay, council discussion.
Great, well then, sorry.
Did you have something, Jason?
No, I thought we were moving on to SOS, I apologize.
I believe that somebody just told me we were supposed to talk about the Republic decision here. Okay, okay. Discussion on Republic? Brian?
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to approve the proposed rate increase from Republic Services.
Is there a second? Seeing Rick with the second. Discussion? Joel, did you have something?
No, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Looks like we're all ready to vote. In that case, Brian, you're up.
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Unanimously approved. We will move on to the SOS presentation. Thank you.
I apologize for the confusion. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick Fahey and Trent Carpenter from Southern Oregon Sanitation. Pretty much the same story, but a little bit different.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to speak on the subject today. So today we will be requesting a general rate increase for both our hauling company and the Redwood Transfer Station. Well, just like Julie, I will not be touching on every rate review requirement in this presentation. All of that information is in the packet. I will also be referencing the rate packet pages if anyone has more questions. So we are actually doing two different rate increases. One is for the hauling company for the city of Grants Pass, as well as one for the Redwood Transfer Station. I apologize for those that have been on the county for a while, but it is apropos for us to briefly go over who we are as a company. SOS was founded as Path Sanitary Service in 1948. We are a third-generation family-owned and operated business serving 4 different counties with our main office located here in Grants Pass. We service over 28,000 customers en route and take more than 65,000 phone calls annually. As an organization, we have industry standard certifications, industry applicable degrees, and sit on a few local boards as volunteer members. At Southern Oregon Sanitation, our mission is to continue to build a legacy through our commitment to excellence and serve each customer as our neighbor. Our dedicated team provides a variety of waste management solutions that are economical and sustainable to improve the health and safety of the communities we serve. The city's role is to ratify the recommendation of the Solid Waste Agency. The Solid Waste Agency deals with issues for both the county and the city. They review our financials, our annual reports, the DEQ reports, and potential changes in service. Again, both the franchise agreement and the council's role in the rate review process is to ensure fairness, both to the service providers and the members of our community. When we look at the rates, our operating ratio needs to be within the 9 and 13% over a 2-year average. When that 2-year average goes below that 9% threshold, the franchisee can request a rate review. You can see that both divisions are below that 9% and are expected to be below the 5% emergency threshold in 2021 without a general rate increase. Keep in mind that we originally had planned to come into the Solid Waste Agency last year to request a rate increase, but thought it would be unwise during a pandemic. And while we are still in a pandemic, we cannot withstand another year without a rate increase. So for the city of Grants Pass, we are proposing a 14% general rate increase for our routes. If we enacted this starting January 1, 2021, we would have a 5.66% operating margin. The last general rate increase was in 2012. Since then, the CPI-U has been 14.3%. We have had other rate increases, both in 2016 and 2018. 2016 was to include yard waste as an included service, and in 2018 to address the world recycle crisis. The 2-year average for the city of GP for 2020 was 4.2%, and that is the number that we realize we do need a rate increase. Similar to Republic, this is a graph of comparable rates. This does not include everything that is required on the rate review, but these are the as close to apples service levels that we have. I will go into that in the next slide. Keep in mind, compared to these other services that are as close to us as possible, we are significantly lower in price, even with a rate increase. This is expressed on page 222 of the packet, as well as a full Exhibit B rate sheet starting on page 225. This is a comparison of the services that we offer. If you see us at the very top, we are at our customer's location 134 times a year. That's garbage, yard waste, and recycling. The other comparable services, both in Medford and Ashland, are at those locations 104 times. So in short, we provide a 29% more service at a 23% lower price than other haulers in the Rogue Valley. As Republic Services, we did put our 14% rate increase in there to compare both to the trash and garbage index as well as the CPI-U. So I believe that even with a 9-year time frame, we're doing pretty good at 14%. Keep in mind a garbage truck has increased by 33.7% in that time frame, and driver's wages has gone up by 28.5%. This is the capital expenditures over time. You can see that continues to go up. This year we have budgeted $1.7 million. We have ordered and received 2 automated side load trucks already. Those come in at about $330,000 a piece. 1 front load truck, 1 trailer for our transfer station, and then 1 drop truck. This is another graph that is required in the rate review, and it is similar to what Julie showed you in their presentation. This is a specific forecast. At the bottom, there is the 2-year average, again, 4.2% for 2020, and with the rate increase for the full year, we're at 4%. This does coincide with a 5% reduction in the residential customer count that we've seen in 2020, as well as a 38% decrease in commercial customer counts. For the Redwood Transfer Station, we are proposing a 10% rate increase, rounded up to nearest 25 cents. The Redwood Transfer Station was opened in 2007 to the public, and at that time we had adopted the Kirby Transfer Station rates from 1994. We currently see 64,000 customers through our gates, and that was a 12.3% increase from 2019. 47.6% of all customers are minimum loads. The transfer station minimum charges, that is that $15 on the left-hand side there, and it is compared to other haulers in the area. As you can see, our proposed minimum charge is still below the rates of Jackson County. We take all of our garbage to the Dry Creek landfill. These rates are still in line with other hauling companies' 35-gallon once-a-week rate. That is to dissuade people from going to the transfer stations instead of having garbage and recycling and yard waste right at their curb. That higher minimum charge does decrease minimum haul loads and therefore decreases traffic count on Redwood Avenue. That is more of a public policy issue, not a rate increase issue. The 2-year average for 2021 is 10.6%. The 2-year average for 2020 was 6.3%. For the 2021 pro forma budget, we did back out the number of customers as well as the corresponding budget entries that would affect costs. We consider this to be our COVID bubble, much like Julie said. 2020 was a specifically unique year with people staying at home, people out of work. They brought their stuff to the transfer station. They cleaned out the garage. We don't think people are going to be able to or have to clean out their garage again in 2021. This graph is on page 232 of the City Council packet. And that is about it. We do recommend the rate adjustment as presented on Exhibit B and Exhibit E. These are pages 225 and 236 in your rate packet. And with that, I'd more than love to have you guys ask me any questions. I heard great questions already, so.
My first question is, when you pointed out that it's on page 232 in the packet, are you indicating an interest in running for city council in the future?
No, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for SOS? Joel, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. All right, I'm not hearing that we have any questions for you at this time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, public comment? Not hearing any public comment. Council discussion? Brian?
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to approve the proposed rate increase from Southern Oregon Sanitation.
Motion, second. Rick with the second. Discussion? Valerie?
I guess now I have the question, but I'm going to assume that they're also looking to do a different methodology moving forward. Are you working with Republican trying to do a different methodology going down the,
That is correct, yes. We've been instructed to bring some language to the solid waste agency, and we'll see what goes on there. And hopefully we get something where we don't have to bring such large rate increases to the council. That's one of the detrimental parts of the job and the franchise agreement. It's based on the 2-year average. So if you're at a 9.5%, one year at an 8.7, the next year you're still above the 9%, even for the 2-year average, even though you're below. So it can't go on to the next year, and who knows what's going to happen then. That's what we're trying to get away from.
okay. Okay, I just want clarity on that. And the same thing with that garbage program that you're doing in terms of the dump stoppers. That's another thing that's coming through the agency, am I correct? No, or is that just between the garbage haulers?
Not at this time. That is a Republic issue that they're tackling for us. If you've got somebody that's not taking care of their own garbage, that's a health and safety issue, and that's a code enforcement thing, because you can have vectors that not only spread disease, but spread the garbage everywhere. So that's a code enforcement issue, which would then possibly go to what Jason was talking about, the property cleanup stuff that the Environmental Protection Fund covers.
Excuse me.
We do have a motion on.
Oh, no, I know, but I'm sorry.
I mean, I think that's all interesting. It's a discussion for another day down the road. So thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
All right, is there discussion on the motion? Nope. Ready to vote? Brian, you're up first.
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Vanessa?
Yes.
DJ?
Yes.
Valerie?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Okay. The fee increase is approved. Thank you to both Republic and SOS for coming down. Council, do you want a short break or do you want to move on to Caveman?
Let's go. I'm good to keep going.
Ready to keep going? Okay. Next up on the agenda is a motion approving the request to open Caveman Pool early.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Welcome, Councilor Collins. I'm Wendy Giordano, the Park Superintendent, and I'm back here today to talk more about Caveman Pool, the potential for opening it this scheduled season, and also a request by the YMCA to open it early. So part of the discussion is reviewing the current condition of the Caveman Pool and considerations, as I said, for reopening early per the YMCA's request, and also opening for the regular season starting in mid-June. The relationship to council goals is maintain, operate, and expand our infrastructure to meet community needs by ensuring that our park infrastructure is adequate to serve the community. So most of the people in this room know that the pool has been around a while. It's in the 70-year-old range. The picture on the lower right is one of the original pictures when it was constructed. We've got poor conditions with some of the concrete around the pool, rusting of the pipes and the equipment, very old and inefficient. Our shade structure was removed last year due to the condition, and a recent inspection of the lifeguard chairs, diving board, and slide found that they all will need to be removed. So all of this came up very quickly. I wasn't expecting a request for early opening, but I was able to get the experienced contractor that's worked on this system before to come out yesterday and test the boiler and heat exchanger, which was one of our primary concerns. And we have some good news. The heat exchanger did not leak, and it is operational. The boiler is working, but it is very inefficient and will be costly to run during the cooler spring months. He did recommend installing a new super high-efficiency heating system that would be at least 35% more efficient and is likely to be eligible for Energy Trust rebates. The new system would require additional installation of a new hot water heater for the showers and restrooms. Right now, that main system runs the hot water for the entire facility. So I did ask him, I let him know that we're considering future relocation possibly. We've got a team that's going to get together and really investigate what our options are for the future. And he did say that this system could actually be taken out and reinstalled at a new location if that was something that we ended up doing, or if we decided to close the facility completely. There is an aftermarket for this type of equipment. So just a little background on the Caveman Pool contract. The YMCA has been running the pool since 1987, a very long time. This has been a great partnership with the city, and the current contract is to open the pool no later than the second Saturday of June and going through August. This is to open the pool after school is out of session because the location is basically in the grounds of Grants Pass High. And also, it's weather permitting. We have closed in the past for different weather events and smoke concerns, but it's open to the general public for a minimum of 5 hours per day on the weekdays and 4 hours a day on the weekends with some flexibility. The Y may use the facility for swim teams or instruction during non-public hours as long as the staff costs do not exceed the revenue. And the Y members do not receive special discounts. So the Y's responsibility is to staff all of the lifeguards, locker room attendants, janitors, vacuum operators, and the concession operators. And they're also responsible for keeping the facility clean and sanitary, including all of the supplies. They put the cover on and off every day and purchase the concession inventory. So the city's responsibility is all of the costs relating to the utilities, repair and maintenance of the pool, including the heating of the water and chemicals. The city also has on staff certified pool operators that perform the maintenance. So the way that it works is the current contract allows the YMCA to cover all of their expenses and their management fees through the admission and concession revenue. And then anything over and above that is split with the city, and over the not last year because it was closed, but in prior years, we've been just around in that $1,200 to $1,300 range over and above what it costs for them to run it. And it's also in our contract that in the event that the YMCA expenses and management fee is not covered by revenue, that the city would pay the YMCA up to 50% of the deficit with a maximum of $2,000 for a summer season. So the early opening considerations, when I contacted the Y and I just wanted to ask, are you able to help us run the pool this summer? And not only did they say, yes, we want to do that, but we would like to open it as soon as possible. Can you make that happen? So we had an initial discussion, things moved very quickly, we got this into the packet, and then we actually had our meeting with the Y and Superintendent of District 7 after the packet was out, and kind of went through some of the concerns. So one of the things that would impact our staff is we don't normally operate the pool this time of year. So they said they could only provide their certified pool operator on Friday and Saturdays. So it would still require our staff to be there about an hour and a half a day and taking them out of their normal spring park duties. The other concern is parking. Normally we open the pool when school is out. And they just got in-person classes again. So we talked about how do we make this work? And the school district said they would allow 6 spaces in the parking lot that you see at the top of the photo there to be reserved for attendance of the pool. But that wasn't going to be enough. So they said, can we somehow get street parking reserved for pool attendees? And that's along Wharton, which you see at the bottom of the screen there. Of course, the other concern is COVID-19. So right now, with our current level, the estimated maximum attendance is 24 people. And with that in mind, we know that admission fees are not going to cover the expenses of their staff. I was hoping to get some estimates from the YMCA on what they thought they could generate in revenue, but they weren't able to provide that to me. So all they could say is that their staffing would cost about $15,000 for the early opening dates, and their revenue might cover half, but we really don't know because we've never done this before. They did say if council makes a decision to go ahead and open, they could start doing fundraising and try to cover these additional costs. And just so you know, our comprehensive fee schedule, our current fees for youth is $3 a session, adult $4.50, and a family is $9. So trying to figure out what the impact would really look like, I just put together this chart, thinking if there's 24 people and they had 3 sessions, because they would have this reservation system where they would bring people in and then they would have to leave at a certain time. And they did 3 sessions a day, and knowing there's going to be some adults and some youth, maybe $4 average each admission. So what does that look like in revenue? And I'm just estimating $1,700 a week. They said their staff costs run in the $3,200 range. So we're looking at a shortfall of about $1,500 a week that they're asking the city to cover. So again, the resources and requirements, we would have to cover the Monday through Thursday certified pool operator. We need to figure out how the parking would work, if reserve street parking on Wharton would work. And the other factor is, can we get the pool to be 82 degrees in the cooler months? We were right around the 80-degree mark in 2019 when we shut the pool down in August, which obviously is a lot warmer than right now. So we're not sure till we get things running, but that is definitely a requirement that people will start cramping if they have it lower than that. So brief recap of what I've presented before, just trying to look at the time frame of when we could potentially open it. We're looking at April 16th. If you made a decision on changing out the heat exchanger and boiler with a new system, the contractor said they could probably get that done in about 3 weeks, but at the price level that I'm going to show you in a moment, we would need to put that out for an RFP. And the other thing is purchasing lifeguard chairs. COVID is slowing everything down. I was thinking I could get them quickly, but after talking to suppliers, we're looking at about 5 weeks out. But the Y said that we could use their chairs if we opened early, and then when ours came in, we would switch them out. So our current adopted budget for the pool, it has its own separate budget from Parks operating budget. This year was $107,000, and to date we've spent just under $22,000. We will need those new lifeguard chairs. Those are $5,000. An optional thing that for you to consider is purchasing a new diving board and slide. The Y said they did not need that to open, but those are 2 pieces of equipment that are being removed. The heat exchanger boiler with a new energy efficient system, It ranges, the super high efficiency version, which he recommended and would be eligible for the Energy Trust rebates, is in the 85,000 range, and the 50,000 range would get us something newer, but just not that, we wouldn't have that savings over the long run with the efficiency. So the cost for utilities and chemicals, staff and admin and all of those miscellaneous costs are in the $73,000 to $80,000 range. A lot of this is the cost of the gas. It's an inefficient system. Our gas rate is much higher, and just talking to Avista and looking at our rate schedule and what we would expect to need to get that pool temperature to 82 degrees, it's very costly. So and in addition, as I described earlier, the YMCA shortfall would be in the $12,000 range. All of that combined, we're looking at going over our adopted operating budget. Again, these are just best guesses using all of the information we have in front of us right now, that we would potentially go over $4,000 to $11,000, which would require a budget adjustment. So the call to action date is at your discretion, and the alternatives for opening is to approve the opening of Caveman Pool in April 2021 and authorize a budget adjustment, approve request for the amended conditions or agreement with the YMCA, open Caveman Pool in June for the normal schedule, set a maximum spending authorization on repairs to remain within the adopted budget, allow for spending on repairs to exceed the adopted operating budget using LB 6393 funds, deny the request or postpone the request. And with that, I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Did you say the heat exchanger is operational? There were two different parts maybe that we were talking about. It was operational, but you're not sure if it can get to 82 degrees. Is that?
It is operational. It's extremely old. So I have a very enthusiastic and positive-minded contractor that thinks he can get that tuned up and hopefully get it to the 82 degrees during the cooler months. But until we fill the pool and start turning everything on, we can't guarantee you 100% that that's going to be the case.
Okay. I personally feel like we have two different questions going on here. One was that, well, last time we discussed this, council was interested in having it open this summer. And now we have this additional question of whether or not we want to open it early. So I guess I'm personally wondering what of these costs need to be done to have it open during its normal schedule versus the earlier. So is there a repair to the heat exchanger that's needed for summer operations that we know of?
Well, right now, the contractor is saying that it is operational. It's not efficient, but it is operational. We don't have the pool filled. We expect to have the pool, finish cleaning the pool and fill it by the end of the week and start filling it. It takes a while to get it filled and start turning on all of the equipment. I've had my CPO, two of them are taking vacation. So they're, one of them's back tomorrow, and we're working as hard as we can to find out what the status is.
Okay, Brian?
Thanks, Wendy. I just had a question about the attendance numbers that are allowed. Do you have any information about the attendance levels at the lower risks of COVID, or is there even guidance for that at this point?
That's just a moving target. The YMCA is more familiar with those requirements than I am, and I was relying on their expertise to evaluate the size of the pool and the factors. So, we don't know. There definitely could be a change in attendance, up or down.
I was just going to say, we did today get from the State of Oregon announcement that, from OHA on outdoor entertainment and recreation. For high risk, you have a maximum of 15% of the occupancy. That's the only guidance that we have. So that's as of today.
All right, thank you.
Questions? Rick?
Thank you, Wendy. When you mention utilities, does that include the water? And of course, any operation has to pay the water bill, so that's included in that amount. Okay,
Yes, water, sewer, electrical, gas.
okay, thank you.
Say, Mayor, I had a couple questions.
Go for it.
Wendy, I appreciate your presentation. As always, it's very professional. I appreciate what you do for all of us. The demand for using the pool early, it's cold. Do you think even at that greatly reduced capacity that you would be at 100% capacity?
That's an unknown. We do have seniors that normally go to the Y. The Y pool is shut down for renovations. They're not opening again until June. The CEO of the YMCA was expressing interest in serving seniors during the day and swim teams later in the day. We do have parents of kids that are in swim teams that have come to our Parks Committee meetings and expressed the desire to have our pool open and get those kids back in the water again.
Okay, so then given that, Wendy, and your staffing level, I think you have several unfilled vacancies on your staff, and this amounts to about 25% of an FTE to work for 2 hours a day from Monday through Friday. What is the impact on the staffing level, and what else won't get done?
That's a good question. We're actually full. We were tentatively approved for a half of an FTE this year, but we've held back on that, knowing that we have this public safety levy looming. And so we're looking at about 6 hours a week, which is a good chunk out of a 40-hour week. This is a very busy time for my staff. They're gearing up for the spring. I mean, when the sun is out, things are growing. We're testing irrigation. We're prepping fields. We are very slim staffed, as I think most of you know, and yeah, that will definitely impact us. I was hoping that this YMCA could provide their CPO more than the 2 days a week, but that's what he said, that they could provide just the 2 days.
Okay, and the third question I had, Wendy, for the swim teams, Club Northwest, is that available for swim teams at all?
I can't answer that question. I'm not sure. I would assume that Club Northwest, if paid a fee for their facility, they could allow the swim teams. I think the desire was to have the outdoor pool. There's more a higher capacity level in the outdoor situations than an indoor pool.
Okay. So then my last question is, there seems to be a great deal of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. The uncertainty of what happens with the pandemic, the uncertainty of the heater, the uncertainty of the use during cold weather. Mm-hmm. I can't think, there's a couple more uncertainties that we're dealing with. Given that rate of uncertainty, which would increase the risk of financially, what is your professional judgment on opening that pool early and in terms of its impact on the parks budget?
Well, my opinion is that we are going to go over budget. It is going to put additional stress on my team that has also been impacted by some situations in the parks that have happened over the last year. it will be a challenge, but we are at the council's, whatever decision you make, we will try to make it happen.
I appreciate your professionalism. Thank you.
Given that this, we're talking about this early spring opening costing approximately $75,000 in addition to whatever it would cost to operate in the summer, is there council interest in pursuing that, or can we lay that idea to rest? Okay, I think we need to focus on the summer personally. Rob?
Yeah, I would agree. With regards to focusing on the summer, I feel that as a city councilor, I want to see the pool open in the summer for any children and adults that want to use it in the June, July, August timeframe. I think that's kind of what we have always, that's what the public's come to expect. That's kind of what we owe them. But more than that, as much as I would like to, help out the YMCA and other people that want to use the pool early, my concern is that the pool is basically, and it seems like all the equipment involved is basically limping along. I'm hoping that it would make it through the 3 summer months without needing a major repair before we can let it go off into the sunset and get a new pool. But in addition, as Joel mentioned, with the COVID uncertainties, we really don't know if we're going to be ramped up to a higher danger classification at any moment. So to invest really any extra money to me seems foolish, and I would just hope that we don't have to invest extra money this summer to keep the pool open during its normal months. I think it's just there's too much uncertainty, as Joel was saying, too many best guesses, and too much of a chance that this could be a money pit that we don't really want to get into. It's almost like having a car with 500,000 miles on it that we know we're taking to the junkyard in August 31st. How much do we want to invest in it now? We just want to milk it through the three primary months is the way I look at it.
Valerie?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that as well. And I'm also going to say, the reality of it is that, in a sense, I feel like we're doing it for the swim team and the YMCA. And that's not really our issue. It was like they chose to do remodeling in April through June. We didn't make that choice. And as you said, we've been thinking, gee, wouldn't it be nice if we can get one more summer out of it? So I'm kind of where you are. I want to get one more summer out of it, but with all the unknowns and the pressure to jump ahead and do something when we don't know what that is, I think it's just too risky. But I would like to see us move towards a June opening, a regular opening.
Further comment? Brian?
I have further comment on the pool, not with regards to early opening though.
I think early opening is off the table at this point, so let's talk about summer. Do you have questions for Wendy, or are we at the point of discussion?
On the regular pool.
Well, I had one more question.
Joel, go ahead.
Wendy, so the replacing that heater with a much more efficient heater, that seems somewhat attractive in terms of a capital investment. It's going to have a return on it with reduced energy costs. We can use it in the future. How realistic is that, and what's your professional judgment on doing that?
I think if council is interested in opening the pool and that it would be, we've got a project with $280,000 in it for the future restoration or replacement of the pool. So we could use that funding for this piece of equipment, install the super high efficiency system, and see what happens in the future. Then we would see some cost savings through the summer. I should add, I'm not sure if, with the unknown of not knowing what the attendance level is going to be, I don't know if the Y will come back and say, even though our contract says, we're going to operate and you will pay us $2,000 if expenses exceed revenues. I'm not sure on that part of it, whether they would be willing to lose that amount of money on their staffing at the pool.
Rick?
Wendy, you indicated a price up there for a new diving board, and I noticed that the base where the diving board secures itself to the concrete, is there an opportunity to take off the metal that's on there, like with a cutting torch, and then put a new base on there and still be able to use the board, or is the rest of the board deteriorated as well?
I had the equipment inspected by a professional safety inspector, and they deemed the diving board, the slide, and the lifeguard chairs all unsafe and not repairable.
Thank you. I would, again, just reaffirm that I would be in favor of summer operation, but not anything before.
Valerie?
I just have a question. How much money is in the LB 6393 funds? Because that's up there. Was that there somewhere?
It's 280,000. There was
Okay.
a little bit more than that, but it was recently reduced through the budget discussions.
Brian?
Yeah, Valerie, it was 350, and then I think 70,000 came out to pay for the public safety building. So, I mean, I'm in agreement with Rick and Rob. Summer season, I mean, it's the last year of the pool. I hope by fall we have a plan for the new pool. The question I had, maybe not necessarily for Wendy, but for the rest of council, is in her presentation, she explained that the hours of the pool, if I'm reading it right, was only 5 hours a day on weekdays and 4 hours a day on the weekends, which seems short to me. So I don't know if there's an opportunity for us to have a little bit more hours to allow more use of the pool, extending earlier in the morning or later in the evening or both. But I thought that those hours seemed pretty short.
Rob?
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian, especially when we consider that we may have continued COVID restrictions. There could be, it could take 8 hours in a day to get 4 hours worth of kids swimming in that pool, because there may not be long shifts. So if anything, we would want more hours in years past to let more kids, or even the normal amount of kids, be able to swim. Some might have to come a little earlier, some might stay a little later, but that's a really, especially on the weekends, that's a really short day, especially if it's very limited occupancy.
Okay, do we have further questions for Wendy at this time? No? Okay, thank you, Wendy. I'm going to open it to the public for comment. Nobody here to comment on it? Okay, let's go back to council for discussion. Aaron has something first.
Just to help with the discussion, the thing that we're looking for and needing right now is you focused on summer operation. So just to narrow down the discussion from there is, do you want us to invest in a new heater system, and do you want us to invest in a new slide and diving board? Other than that, I think we've got enough direction to move forward to get the pool ready. It's just what additional expenses do you want us to have ready for the summer? So those three main things. Do you want us to invest in the heat exchange? Do you want us to invest in the diving board, in the swimming pool, and in the slide?
Brian?
So to those points, I would personally not put any more money into the pool than we need to. I wouldn't put any money into fixing the heat exchanger. I wouldn't put any money towards a new boiler. As Rob said, it'd be like putting a new engine in a 500,000 mile car, and then you're buying a car next year. Even if you could put that engine in the new car, it just doesn't really make sense to do. So, and the same with the diving board and everything else. My vision is that we, get the pool open, we don't put any money into it that we don't need to, and then we focus on the new pool.
Further comment on that? I'm seeing heads nod. think it sounds like we're leaning towards a agreement there of focusing on opening the pool for the summer and spending as little money as possible on extras. But obviously, we do need the new lifeguard chairs. Personally, a little curious about an inflatable slide. I've seen those at other pools, and that might be something that we could use here and then use it again somewhere else in the future. But we may need to have another workshop or discussion to finalize some of these things, sounds like. Do you have what you need for now? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Wendy. Time for public comment. And I don't see anybody waiting to speak to us. Julie, do we have emails to review?
Okay, you received one email regarding wearing masks, one email regarding tents in Riverside Park, 9 emails about the visitor center, one email about Foundry Village, one email about the intersection at Vine and Morgan, one email about the county commissioners and the pandemic, one email about public safety, and one email about public restrooms in the downtown.
Thank you. Move on to the consent agenda. DJ is going to read that. Is there anything anybody has question about that needs to be pulled off of consent agenda tonight? No? Go for it, DJ.
The consent agenda. Item A, resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the B Street Sidewalk Infill Project number TR 6118. Item B, resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application requesting funding for removal and replacement of the asphalt drive-in parking area at Baker Park. Item C, resolution authorizing the city manager to accept funding from the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program. Item D, resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Department of Forestry for fuel reduction work on Dollar Mountain. Item E, motion approving the minutes of the City Council meeting of March 3, 2021. Item F, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Historic Buildings and Sites Commission meeting of December 10, 2020. Item G, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Committee on Public Art meeting of December 8, 2020. Item H, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Committee on Public Art meeting of February 9, 2021. Item I, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Committee on Public Art meeting of February 19, 2021. Item J, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Collaborative Economic Development Committee meeting of January 28, 2021. Item K, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting of January 5, 2021. Item L, motion acknowledging the minutes of the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting of February 2, 2021. And with that, I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second from Valerie. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is consented to. We had no review of public comment today. Do we have any committee motions? One.
Well,
Yeah, Valerie.
I just had a question about the, one of the emails about, I was going to ask Jason about the Vine, that intersection up there, because that is a pretty hairy intersection. So I was just kind of curious, and I know that there's, there was talk with the new beer or whatever, that food cart area going up there. What might happen at that intersection?
Yeah, Wade and I are looking into that. We're actually engaging a traffic consultant to kind of look at a couple of solutions. It is an awkward intersection. It's not one that you're likely going to see a multi-way stop at, though, because of the distance between 6th Street and Vine Street. When you get down in there, there's just not a lot of options. So we may have to look at some increased setbacks. I'm not exactly sure, but we are looking into that, and we will have a response for that person shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we did have a motion from the Urban Tree Advisory Committee recommending the approval of planting the black tupelo trees on the Washington Boulevard. And that is something that we've discussed having come up at a future meeting, so I don't think we need to talk about that one today. Do we have council liaison reports? Vanessa?
Before I advise on the COPA report, I noticed there's a meeting minutes for Committee on Public Art dated February 19th, and I wasn't informed of that meeting. I don't know if I missed something there.
I'm not sure why you would have not been informed. Were you informed of the recent one that we made? Okay, so.
Yeah, of the regular scheduled ones, yes, but it looks like this one was kind of an impromptu meeting for the Art in Motion project. So I just didn't know if something fell through the cracks or what happened there.
Okay, well, if it did, we'll fill the crack.
Okay, thank you. And then for the Committee on Public Art, their most recent meeting, the artist that was chosen for the alley beautification project was brought forward their project idea. This is the alley right next to the hall. The committee and the artist worked through the logistics of getting that set up, electrical and that kind of stuff, and securing the installation into that alleyway. The committee will be bringing this project to the council shortly for approval. And the artist had kind of a cool idea to install it on a weekend and make an event out of it to bring people downtown, so I thought that was clever. They're going to move forward, the Committee on Public Art will move forward with a grant application for their art box project. And the committee did vote to begin exploring a parking lot installation for the duck lot. This is the parking lot between Safeway and OPA off of 7th and G Street. Also, the subcommittee had said that there's some ongoing vandalism on several art installments throughout the city. And one of them, on one of our murals downtown, was something that can be perceived as anti-Semitic. So I wanted to take the opportunity this evening to just advise the community that hate is not welcome here. And that's it for COPA.
Thank you. Valerie?
Yes, I actually, by phone, listened to the RV Act meeting, which was last week, and they're just still kind of, I say in flux, just because they're kind of waiting to see what goes on with the OTC and the dispersal of money coming from the state. They're trying to get a enhancement fund, small enhancement fund for bigger projects going again, but they're all anxiously waiting to see if something happens with the federal government and a transportation plan, which they haven't had for quite a while. So anyway, that's RV Act.
Is that walkways and bikeways? What? RV Act, I see.
No, it's
I was hearing
Rogue
a
Valley Active Committee on Transportation, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my mistake.
If we could say
RV Act,
things out
Rogue
instead of
Valley,
using
yes.
acronyms, that would be fantastic.
And
Right.
our MPO, which is a Mid-Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization, is meeting tomorrow, and I am anxious to see if there's any changes coming down the pike with that, whether we're grandfathered in as well with that, because that's also that same funding that comes through for the community block grant. That's where we get a lot of our sidewalk money and comes from the federal government, and so I would hate to see that go away. So,
Brian?
Yeah, I have bikeways and walkways, and they're meeting this month mostly focused on the area around the fairgrounds, Allen Creek area, and the connection to Tussing Park, because as we all know, that's a critical pedestrian path from that section of the city to town. So staff presented parts of the Transportation System Plan, TSP, and specifically they talked about future projects with the Redwood Avenue realignment, the potential future Fourth Bridge approach that's going to be in that area, and the extension of West Park Street to hook up with said bridge approach. So they did a lot of discussion about just how the fairgrounds is affecting that path. There's a lot of runoff from the fairgrounds because it's all dirt there, and the bike path is actually below the grade of the fairgrounds. So anytime it rains, there's just mud getting over there. So they're trying to figure out a way to address that. And then the last thing that the committee did was they began breaking out into subcommittees to work on addressing their goals for this year. And those three main goals are connectivity throughout the city, trail development, and pedestrian and bike advocacy. And that was it for that.
Thank you. Rick?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting past 9 o'clock.
Ah, shoot. Second? Vanessa with the second.
And then I have a report.
Hang on.
Yesterday, we had the solid waste.
Let's vote real quick. And who's in favor of extending the meeting past 9?
Yes.
All hands are raised, okay. I don't get to vote, but go ahead, Rick.
Thank you. We had a solid waste committee meeting yesterday and basically just reconfirmed that the rates are coming tonight, but also in the future, the franchise agreements that are, I would say, 20 years old have been revised into current language and just some housekeeping items, and those will be brought before the council in the future as well. That's it.
Thank you. Any other?
Sarah, when I fit in, you can call on me.
Yep, go for it right now.
Okay. I had about 3 committee reports. One is the Historical Buildings and Site Commission. The text amendments that we looked at for the historical district, we had a public presentation on vinyl signs, and that vinyl signs may be appropriate, and so there may be some changes to that text in Article 13. Good discussion on Riverside Park. It's on the National Register, and it would be neat, and we will get some National Register signs put up there, so we need to work to do that. It's not going to be a big expenditure item at all, but it's nice to go to a park and you see it's on the National Register. And then the third subject was Conservation District Design Overlay, which would be a new addition outside of the historic district. And so we're doing research and some input into that before it comes to council, and it's not quite right to come to council, but that's something that we're discussing. And it would involve a lot of maintaining the historic housing and the styles of housing that we have associated north of the historic district. Then, just real quick, I know it's past 9 o'clock. Parks Advisory Committee, we already talked about the master plan, skateboard park, the Goose Food down at Riverside Park. We have one public that's working on perhaps having an alternative to feeding bread to the geese, because that really isn't healthy for them. And so they're working on that. And let me see, the master plan. And then, of course, the MOU's coming back to us, which is, we sent it to them and they did their work, and then we need to make a decision. And then the tree committee, let me see here. Oh. It's a good thing I'm at home. So the tree committee, they're going to hand out some awards on landscaping, and they're going to be looking at planting locations for a city project to plant even more trees and improve the future of our environment here in the city. And of course, they got the one Tupelo motion that's already coming. And then in April, we have a Arbor Day proclamation on 4/21. And so there'll be something coming to you, Sarah, on that Arbor Day proclamation. And then there's, in April, they're going to plant the Hiroshima Peace Tree. So that's with the tree committee. And then on the Economic Development Committee, we got an update from the Foundry Village, and that's coming along nicely. Three Rivers School District, they're working on the internet and weak spots out in the county for broadband, and how to cover those weak spots and perhaps get some federal funding to do that. And there was a lot of discussion on parklets, which we've covered. And then the county did have a relief for restaurants for COVID to the tune of $150,000, and we also participated in, and that went fairly successfully. They also have COVID funding for child care needs, $250,000. And there's also a rental assistance program with Josephine County Housing Authority. And there's also been several Chamber of Commerce funds and grants associated with COVID. So the world is turning. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Anybody else? Valerie?
Well, I just wanted to mention that tomorrow morning we are meeting for the destination marketing organizations at 8. So if you had any questions or anything that you wanted to get to me to bring up to that meeting, that is every Friday at 8 o'clock. So you're more than welcome to send me questions or concerns. So that will be happening tomorrow. I don't think there's anything new from when they came on Monday. So that, and then also our Political Action Committee is pretty well picking up speed right now, and in front of you, you have an endorsement. The council is putting together a argument in favor of the upcoming levy, and we would really like to have everybody, if you want your name in the ballot, stated in there, then you need to print your name, and then sign your name. And Vanessa will get that statement. I think she's sent it out to everybody and gotten feedback from everybody on that. And I would just like to say we would love to have you put forth some money to help us, because it would help underwrite the cost, because it does cost $400 to put an argument in favor into the voters pamphlet. So if you can contribute to that to help with a PAC, that would be great.
Thank you. All right, I guess we're kind of moving on to mayor and council comments here. Anything else? Vanessa, then DJ?
I just wanted to kind of dovetail on what you said, Councilor Lovelace. For clarification, this paper that we have in front of you is just giving us permission to print your name along with what I sent to you for the voters pamphlet statement, an argument in favor and supporting the levy.
What do you need from us aside from the bottom part? Do you need us to fill out part of the top?
I'm assuming if it's something asking for the measure number, I can do that, but your name and your signature, please.
Okay, thank you. DJ?
Just briefly wanted to congratulate Adam and your staff for the clean audit for FY20. Good job.
Items from council? Rob? Staff comments?
Real quick, our fiscal year 2019 CAFR, so prior to the one that you have on the dais, we received the Certificate of Achievements and Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. So that's cause for celebration. And then the packet that you received starts with this blue page. The first page is a memo that kind of is a guide through the 4 different documents that explain how we got a clean audit. A lot of that information is very explanatory and doesn't point directly to the results. So that's what the memo's for, is to point you in that direction. And if you have any questions on that, I'm always available. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from staff tonight? All right. We will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Joel. And Vanessa with the second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will adjourn and see you next Monday, 11:45.